Your manager said one sentence to you this week. Maybe it was, "Can we sync on this real quick?" Maybe it was a comment on your work, a correction, a small reminder of who decides and who obeys. And something happened in your body. A flash of heat in your chest, your jaw tightened. And then you smiled and nodded and said, "Good point." You overrode it, you always do, but you felt it. And that flash isn't immaturity. It isn't a bad attitude. It's one of the oldest instincts your species owns, which is firing inside a body that was never built to take orders from anyone. Because here's something nobody tells you. For the overwhelming majority of human history, roughly 300,000 years, your ancestors had no bosses, no managers, no kings, no chiefs, no one who could tell them what to do. And that wasn't an accident. They didn't lack leaders because they were too primitive to invent them. They refused them on purpose, sometimes violently. And the reason why explains exactly why you feel what you feel every time someone tries to stand above you. But there's something darker underneath this, something they did to anyone who tried to take charge. And we'll get there in a moment. Let's start with a fact that should not be possible. Look at the world you live in. Every structure in it has someone at the top. Your company has a CEO. Your country has a president. Even your group chat has someone who decides where everyone's eating Friday. Hierarchy feels like gravity, like the natural shape of any group of humans. So why does every anthropologist who has studied hunter-gatherer societies report the same strange thing? These people had no one in charge, and they fought hard to keep it that way. In 1999, anthropologist Christopher Boehm at the University of Southern California published the definitive study on this after reviewing dozens of forager societies across every inhabited continent. Now, his finding was blunt. Hunter-gatherers were not leaderless by default, they were leaderless by design. He called it a reverse dominance hierarchy. In a normal hierarchy, the strong dominate the many. Flip it here. The many band together to dominate anyone who tries to rise above them. The whole group becomes a single watchful eye, scanning constantly for one thing, someone getting too big. And the second anyone did, the group went to work. Here's how they did it, and it will sound oddly familiar. In 1969, anthropologist Richard Lee was living with the Juhwansi people of the Kalahari Desert. As a thank you, he bought the group the biggest, fattest ox he could find for their Christmas feast. He expected gratitude. Instead, they mocked it. They told him it was a bag of bones, worthless, skinny, barely worth butchering. They laughed at his gift for days, and Lee, hurt and confused, couldn't understand why. Then a man explained it to him. Yet they weren't ungrateful. This was a tool. When a man kills a big animal, all right, or gives a big gift, all right, and people praise him, he starts to feel important. He starts to feel like a chief. And a man who feels like a chief, the Juhwansi believed, eventually becomes dangerous to everyone. So they had a rule. You never praise the big hunter. You insult his kill. You keep him laughing at himself. They called it roughly cooling the heart, taking the heat out of a man before that heat could turn into power. Think about your own reaction to the coworker who won't stop talking about his promotion. The guy flexing his new title. That instant, involuntary eye roll. That's not pettiness. That's a 300,000-year-old alarm system telling you someone is climbing. And that climbing is a threat. But ridicule was the gentle option. Because when mockery wasn't enough, your ancestors had a final answer. This is the part that changes everything. When a man could not be shamed, could not be teased back down, when he kept grabbing for control and using force to get it, the group did not just complain. They removed him. Permanently. Boehm documented this across forager society. After forager society, the escalation was always the same. First teasing, then open criticism, then people simply ignored your orders, then ostracism. The group acts like you no longer exist, and if none of that worked, if the man kept trying to rule, the band made a collective decision. They killed him, and they did it carefully. Often, the group would delegate the execution to one of the man's own close relatives. Why? So that no grieving family could seek revenge. No blood feud. It wasn't a murder. It was the community removing a tumor together so that no single hand could be blamed. Boehm estimated that at any given time, roughly 1 in 20 foraging bands was dealing with exactly this, a domineering man trying to force his will on everyone. And the evidence suggests humans have been executing these would-be rulers for at least 45,000 years, possibly far longer. Sit with that. The deepest, oldest political act of our species was not crowning a king. It was killing the man who tried to become one. So when you feel that quiet, satisfying pleasure watching an arrogant, powerful person get taken down, a CEO disgraced, a tyrant toppled, that feeling is not new. You are running the exact same program your ancestors used to stay free. You inherited it from people who survived precisely because they refused to be ruled. So, if this was the human default for 300,000 years, what happened? Why do you have a boss at all? The answer is the same villain from every chapter of your own story: farming. For all those millennia, equality had a hidden engine. Your ancestors owned almost nothing, and what they had to share. Meat rots in a day. You cannot hoard a dead antelope, so no one could build a stockpile, and without a stockpile, no one could buy loyalty or starve a rival into obedience. And if a man ever got unbearable, you could simply walk away. The whole group could split and leave him standing alone in the dust. Power had nothing to grip. Then, about 10,000 years ago in the Fertile Crescent, humans started farming. And for the first time in history, food could be stored. Grain sits in a pit for years. Suddenly there was surplus, something to hoard, something to count, to guard, to control. And the man who controlled the storehouse controlled who ate. You couldn't walk away anymore. Your whole life was planted in that one field. You couldn't share the heat out of a rich man's heart when his wealth sat locked in a granary. In 1991, anthropologist Bruce Knopf described the entire arc of human political life as a U-shape. We began under the dominance of our ape ancestors. We climbed out into hundreds of thousands of years of fierce equality. And then, with farming, we sank straight back down into hierarchy. Kings, priests, landlords, bosses. Your manager is not a fact of nature. Your manager is a 10,000-year-old invention sitting on top of a 300,000-year-old instinct that still wants him gone. So look at where that leaves you. You sit in an open plan office under fluorescent light. Someone you did not choose evaluates your worth once a year and decides what you're allowed to earn. You ask permission to take a day off. You perform enthusiasm in meetings. You watch someone with a slightly bigger title make a decision you know is wrong, and you stay silent. Every cell in your body that came from a hunter-gatherer is screaming, "This is wrong. No one is supposed to stand above me like this." And then your modern mind quiets it down because you have rent and the field is planted and you cannot walk away. That low, grinding resentment you feel toward being managed, it is not weakness. It is not laziness. It is not a personality flaw your performance review can fix. It is the most ancient political instinct our species has ever carried. The same instinct that, for 300,000 years, kept every human being who ever lived as free as a person can be. You were not built to be ruled. You come from 12,000 generations who would rather have killed a man than knelt to him. The cage is real, but the animal pacing inside it is not broken. It just remembers what it was like to be wild. In the next video, we're going to look at the people who first broke that freedom, the very first kings in human history. And the disturbing thing archaeologists keep finding buried in their graves, because the price of the first crowns was paid by someone. And you've probably never been told who or how many.